I always believed that the only thing my parents truly shared was their absolute unyielding hatred for one another. They got divorced when I was 14, and for the next 18 years they treated each other like radioactive waste. They couldn't be in the same room, they couldn't be on the same phone call. When my older sister Sarah got married 5 years ago, she had to hire a private security guard just to make sure our mom and dad stayed on opposite sides of the reception hall. That's how deep the venom ran. But as it turns out, there is one thing powerful enough to bridge an 18-year war between two incredibly bitter people. And that thing is greed, specifically their greed for my money. My name is David. I'm 32 years old, and I work in commercial construction management. It's not a glamorous job. It means waking up at 4:30 in the morning, drinking terrible gas station coffee, and standing in the freezing rain looking at concrete pours or arguing with subcontractors who are 3 weeks behind schedule. But I love it. I worked my way up from the absolute bottom. When I was 18, my parents contributed exactly $0 to my college education or my life. My dad, Richard, is a guy who always believes he's one scratch-off ticket or one shady investment away from being a millionaire. He took early retirement from his mid-level sales job at 55 because he thought he was going to strike it rich day trading. He didn't. He lost almost everything and has spent the last decade living in a decaying house, constantly complaining about how the world owes him a living. My mom, Helen, is the complete opposite, but equally toxic. She is obsessed with appearances. She needs everyone at her country club, which she pays for with credit cards she can't afford to think she's a wealthy socialite. She married and divorced another guy after my dad, got a decent settlement, and blew it all on leased Mercedes SUVs, designer handbags, and vacations to Aspen that she documented religiously on Facebook. Growing up with them was a nightmare. I spent my teenage years acting as a referee, a therapist, and an ATM. When I was 19, my mom secretly opened a credit card in my name to buy patio furniture. It took me 3 years to fix my credit score. When I was 21, my dad asked to borrow $2,000 for medical bills. I gave it to him, skipping meals to make up the difference in my budget, only to find out he used it to buy into a buddy's failing auto detailing business that went under 6 months later. My sister Sarah figured this out early. The day she turned 22, she moved 3 states away, changed her phone number, and effectively cut them both off. She speaks to them maybe once a year, on holidays, for 5 minutes. She always told me I was a fool for staying in touch with them. "David, they're leeches," she told me over the phone a few years ago. "They don't see you as a son, they see you as a retirement plan. The second you actually make something of yourself, they're going to sink their teeth in." I defended them back then. I said they were just flawed people who had a hard time. I thought if I just kept my head down, worked hard, and kept boundaries, things would be fine. I was wrong. Sarah was right. It all started 8 months ago. I had been working as a junior project manager for a massive logistics facility build, a $60 million warehouse project. I practically lived on the site for 2 years. I caught a massive framing error that would have cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I brought the project in under budget and 3 weeks ahead of schedule. Because of that, upper management called me into the corporate office. My boss, a tough old guy named Bill who had become a sort of mentor to me, sat me down. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, David," Bill told me. "You don't panic when things go sideways. We're opening up a whole new division for the tri-state area, and I want you to run it as the regional director." The promotion came with a massive pay bump. I was going from making about $75,000 a year to a base salary of $145,000 plus performance bonuses and a company truck. For a guy who spent his 20s eating ramen noodles and driving a rusted-out 2004 Honda Civic, it was life-changing money. It meant I could finally buy a house. It meant I could actually breathe. That night, in a moment of pure, unadulterated stupidity, I wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted them to see that the kid they ignored and used had actually made it. I called my dad first. "Hey, Dad, I just wanted to share some good news. I got promoted today, regional director." There was a pause on the line. "Oh yeah? That's great, buddy. Does it come with a raise?" "Yeah," I said, foolishly letting my pride take over. "Almost double my salary. I'm hitting $145,000 now." "Wow," my dad said. His voice changed instantly. The casual indifference vanished, replaced by a sudden, sharp interest. $145. That's real money, David. You know, it's funny you called. I was just looking at my mortgage statements today. The bank is really breathing down my neck. I cut him off, telling him I had to go celebrate with some friends, but the seed was planted. 30 minutes later, I called my mom. I told her the exact same news. Her reaction was identical. "Oh, David, I'm so proud of you," she practically squealed. "You know, this is perfect timing. My landlord is raising the rent on my townhouse again, and I saw the most beautiful 2-bedroom condo for sale downtown. It has a doorman. I was thinking, with your new income, you could easily co-sign the mortgage for me, maybe even help with the down payment as a thank you for everything I sacrificed raising you." I hung up the phone feeling sick to my stomach. I had worked for this moment for 10 years, and neither of them even said a simple, unconditional congratulations. Within 30 seconds, they were both trying to figure out how to put their hands in my pockets. Over the next 3 weeks, the campaign began. My dad started calling me every other day. He suddenly wanted to go out for beers, something he hadn't wanted to do in 5 years. Every conversation steered toward his financial ruin. He laid out this elaborate story about how a market correction had wiped out his meager savings and his pension was barely covering his groceries. Finally, over a plate of wings at a sports bar, he made his pitch. "David, look, you're rolling in it now," he said, wiping buffalo sauce off his chin. "You don't have a wife, you don't have kids, you're making 145 grand. I need a lifeline. I'm asking you, as your father, to step up. I need $3,500 a month to cover the mortgage, the utilities, and get the bank off my back. For you, that's just pocket change now." I stared at him. $3,500 a month? Dad, that's $42,000 a year. That's almost a third of my gross income. After taxes, sure, it takes a bite. He waved his hand dismissively. "But you're a single guy. What are you going to spend it on? Video games? Come on. I raised you. I put a roof over your head. It's time to pay the piper." I told him I'd think about it just to get him to stop talking and left the bar feeling furious. 2 days later, my mom invited me to her townhouse for dinner. She cooked a roast, bought an expensive bottle of wine, and set the table with the fine china she got in her second divorce. I knew exactly what was coming. After dinner, she brought out glossy brochures for the luxury condo downtown. "I spoke to a mortgage broker, David," she said, her eyes shining with fake warmth. "Because of my little credit hiccups, I can't get the loan on my own. But with your new salary, if you co-sign, we are golden. The mortgage, HOA fees, and property taxes will come out to exactly $3,500 a month." I froze. "Wait, you want me to pay $3,500 a month for a condo for you to live in?" "Well, you'll be on the deed, darling," she said smoothly. "It's an investment for you, but yes, you'd make the payments. I'm on a fixed income, as you know. And frankly, David, I sacrificed my youth, my figure, and my career to raise you and your sister. It's the least you could do for your mother in her twilight years. She is 59 and gets Botox every 3 months. Her twilight years look a lot like a Real Housewives audition." I left her house that night feeling completely suffocated. They both wanted exactly $3,500 a month. Combined, that would be $7,000 a month. They wanted to take essentially my entire after-tax raise and divide it between them, leaving me right back where I started, living like a broke college student so they could maintain their miserable, irresponsible lives. I called my sister Sarah and vented for an hour. Sarah just laughed, a cold, hard laugh. "I told you, David, I told you this would happen. Tell them no. Tell them to get jobs. Dad is 62. He can work at Home Depot. Mom can go work retail. Do not give them a dime." I know, I said, rubbing my temples. "It's just the pressure. It's constant. And it's weird that they both asked for the exact same amount." "That is weird," Sarah noted. "But they don't talk, so it's just a coincidence. They both probably just looked up how much a guy making your salary takes home and decided what they thought was a fair cut for themselves." I assumed Sarah was right, until the following Saturday. My dad had been complaining that his laptop was broken and he couldn't access his bank statements. I went over to his dingy, smoke-smelling house to fix it. He was outside mowing the lawn, so I sat at his desk and booted up the machine. It was a simple malware issue. I cleared the cache, ran a scan, and opened his browser to make sure the internet was connecting properly. When the browser opened, it restored his previous session. It opened directly to his Gmail inbox. I didn't mean to snoop. I really didn't. But the top email in his inbox, unread, was from an address I recognized instantly. It was my mother's email address. The subject line read, AARE, David's Money, Final Splish'em. My heart stopped. The blood drained from my face. I stared at the screen, my hand hovering over the mouse. My parents hadn't spoken since 2008. They couldn't be in the same zip code without threatening to call the police on each other. I clicked the email. It was a chain, a long chain, dating back to the exact night I called them to tell them about my promotion. Dad, Oct 12, Helen. Don't delete this. The kid just called me. He got a massive promotion, making $145K a year now. He's loaded. Woken Mom, Oct 12, I know. He called me right after. Listen to me, Richard. If we both go at him blindly, he's going to get overwhelmed and shut us both out, just like Sarah did. We need a strategy. As I felt physically sick, I kept scrolling down, reading a negotiation between my parents about how to extract my money. They had done the math. They figured out my exact take-home pay after taxes in our state. Dad, Oct 14, he brings home about $8,500 a month after taxes. He doesn't have a mortgage. He can easily afford to give up $7 grand. We split it down the middle, $3,500 for me, $3,500 for you. You don't ask for a penny more or he'll bolt. Jebuel, Namarat 15 agreed. $3,500 each. I'll pitch it as a real estate investment for a condo. You play the poverty foreclosure card. Make him feel guilty about how much we spent raising him. Do not tell him we spoke. If he knows we coordinated this, he'll know it's a shakedown. As Dad, Act 18, I hit him up tonight at the bar. He balked at the number, but he's thinking about it. Go in for your pitch this weekend. Turn on the waterworks. There was even a spreadsheet attached. My dad had literally made an Excel document titled David Income Distribution. It had columns for his mortgage, my mom's condo fees, and a tiny little column at the end labeled David's Leftovers, which showed me keeping about $500 a month to live on. I sat in my dad's dusty computer chair staring at the screen for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, from absolute blinding rage. For 18 years, they weaponized my childhood. They used me as a pawn to hurt each other. They ruined holidays, graduations, and birthdays with their toxic hatred. But the absolute second I got a decent paycheck, they signed a peace treaty to rob me blind. They didn't see a son. They saw a carcass, and they were a couple of vultures negotiating over which one got to eat the eyes and which one got the liver. I didn't yell. I didn't smash the computer. I calmly took my phone out of my pocket, took crystal clear photographs of every single email in the chain, and took a picture of the spreadsheet. Then I closed the browser, shut down the laptop, and walked outside. All fixed, Dad, I said, handing him his keys. Just had a virus. Thanks, buddy, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Hey, you thought any more about our little arrangement? The bank sent another letter yesterday. I looked him dead in the eye. I've been thinking a lot about it, actually. I think we need to sit down and finalize things. Why don't I take you out to dinner on Friday? We'll get it all sorted. His eyes lit up with greed. Sounds great, son. The steakhouse downtown? Sure, I said. The steakhouse. I got in my truck, drove home, and called my mom. I told her the exact same thing. I told her I had made a decision about the condo and wanted to take her to dinner on Friday night at the steakhouse to celebrate. She was ecstatic. She even talked about what dress she was going to wear. I spent the next 5 days preparing. I didn't just want to tell them no. I wanted to salt the earth so nothing could ever grow between us again. I went to a print shop and had the photos of their emails blown up and printed on high-quality glossy paper. I put them in a crisp manila folder. On Friday night, I arrived at the restaurant 30 minutes early. I requested a large booth in the back corner, away from other patrons. I ordered a glass of bourbon and waited. At 7 p.m. exactly, my dad walked in. He was wearing a blazer he hadn't worn since the late 90s. He slid into the booth opposite me, grinning. Hey, big shot, he said, slapping the table. Ready to sign some checks? Just wait a minute, I said. I'm waiting on one more person. Oh, you bringing a girl? He asked, chuckling. Something like that, I said. 5 minutes later, the hostess led my mother to the table. She was wearing a ridiculous sequined dress, carrying a designer bag she couldn't afford. As she approached the table, she saw my dad. She stopped dead in her tracks. My dad's face dropped. The color completely washed out of his cheeks. He looked like he had just seen a ghost holding a gun. David, my mom stammered, her voice trembling. What is he doing here? I thought we were celebrating. We are, I said calmly, gesturing to the empty seat next to my dad. Sit down, Mom. Richard, make some room for your partner. Neither of them moved for a solid 10 seconds. The tension at the table was so thick you could chop it with a meat cleaver. Finally, my mom slid into the booth, sitting as far away from my dad as physically possible. I don't understand this, my dad muttered, looking at the door like he wanted to make a run for it. You said we were talking about my mortgage. And you told me we were finalizing the condo, my mom chimed in, glaring at him, trying to keep up the charade. David, why is this man here? I took a slow sip of my bourbon. Then I reached onto the seat beside me, picked up the manila folder, and tossed it onto the center of the table. It landed with a heavy thud. I brought you both here because I wanted to save time, I said, my voice completely flat and devoid of emotion. Since you two are clearly working together now, I figured we should hold a board meeting regarding the distribution of my salary. My dad stared at the folder. Working together? I haven't spoken to this witch in almost 20 years. Oh, really? I said. I leaned forward, flipped the folder open, and spread the glossy 8x10 prints across the table. There were the emails. R.E. David's money, final split us. There was the spreadsheet. There were the messages calling me a target, discussing how to manipulate me, how to play on my guilt. My mother looked down at the papers. Her jaw actually dropped. She reached out with a shaking hand and touched the printout of the spreadsheet. Where did you get this? My dad whispered. His tough guy act was completely gone. He looked like a deflated balloon. You asked me to fix your computer, Richard, I said. You left your email open. I'm not a hacker. You're just an idiot. David, darling, please. My mom started, her eyes welling up with tears. The waterworks, right on cue, just like the email said. You're taking this out of context. We were worried about your financial planning. We wanted to make sure you invested it wisely in family. Shut up, I said. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. But the tone was so cold that she snapped her mouth shut instantly. I looked at both of them. For 18 years, you two made my life a living hell. You used me as a weapon against each other. You ruined my childhood. You ruined my credit. You stole from me. You manipulated me, and I forgave all of it. I gave you both a pass because you were my parents. But this? I pointed at the emails. This is evil. You literally conspired to bleed me dry so you wouldn't have to face the consequences of your own pathetic, lazy lives. My dad tried to muster some authority. Now you listen here, son. I'm your father. I raised you. You didn't raise me. I cut him off, staring directly into his eyes. You housed me, barely. I raised myself. I paid for my own clothes. I paid for my own car. I paid for my own college. The only thing you ever taught me was how to spot a con artist. I stood up from the booth and dropped a $50 bill on the table to cover my drink. Here is the final arrangement, I said, looking down at them. You are getting nothing, not a dime, not a co-signature, not a loan, not a handout. I am blocking both of your phone numbers tonight. I am moving at the end of the month, and I am not giving you my new address. If either of you ever shows up at my job, I will have you trespassed by security and arrested. My mother burst into actual hysterical tears. David, please, I can't afford my rent. I'm your mother. You can't just abandon me. Call Richard, I said coldly. He's your financial partner now. Maybe you guys can move in together. My dad just sat there staring at the table, completely ruined. He knew the golden goose was dead. I turned around and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. I didn't feel an ounce of guilt or regret. I got into my truck, rolled down the windows, and drove home. That was 8 months ago. I followed through on every single threat. I blocked their numbers. I moved into a beautiful new apartment across town, closer to my new office. I blocked them on all social media. I even warned the front desk at my new building not to let them up if they somehow found out where I lived. I called my sister the night after the dinner and told her the whole story. She laughed so hard she actually started choking on the phone. We're closer now than we've been in years. We're actually taking a trip to Europe together next spring, paid for in cash with the money I didn't give our parents. Occasionally, I get an email from a new, strange address. It's usually my mom, begging for a small loan or crying about how her life has fallen apart. Or it's my dad, trying to send me a link to some new crypto scam he's involved in, acting like nothing happened. I never open them. I just delete them and go on with my day. It took me 32 years to realize that just because people share your blood doesn't mean they are your family. Sometimes, the people who brought you into this world are the exact people you need to cut out of it in order to survive. I worked hard for the life I have now, and no one, not even the people who gave me my name, is going to take it away from me.